Good afternoon, champions, and welcome to your very first Math Intervention video lesson. I'm excited for us to start learning together in new and different ways. You're going to do a great job with this video today. Make sure that you're taking notes so that you remember all of the things that you're learning and so that you have an opportunity to show your work. Let's get started. Today we're going to round decimals to any place. You'll do this video and you'll answer some questions while you complete it. After you've done that, you'll have a chance to practice on the worksheet in front of you. Let's get started. Round 13 and 27 hundredths to the nearest tenth. Remember, when I'm rounding, knowing which place value I'm rounding to is most important. I'm rounding to the tenths place in this example. What digit is in the tenths place? The 2 is in the tenths place. Now I need to determine which 2/10ths this number falls between. Well, I know that on one side of my number line I'll have 13 and 2/10ths because it's 13 and 2/10ths and a little bit more. I know that on the other side of my number line I'll have 13 and 3/10ths because that's the next tenth. So I make sure that I have my entire number up to the tenths place. Now, 13 and 2/10ths is the same as 13 and 20 hundredths. And 13 and 3/10ths is the same as 13 and 30 hundredths. I could split the number line into hundredths between 13.2 and 13.3. I'm going to draw 9 lines. And those lines represent the hundredths between these two numbers. I'm going to fill those in now. I can see that if I counted across my number line, I would count from 13 and 2/10ths, or 13 and 20 hundredths, to 13 and 21 hundredths, 13 and 22 hundredths, and all the way across to 13 and 30 hundredths. Now, the number in the hundredths place tells me how far down my number line to move, the next number over. So I'm going to move to 13 and 27 hundredths. I can see that because that 7 is greater than 5, I am much closer to my larger tenth. When I round 13 and 27 hundredths to the nearest tenth, I get 13 and 3/10ths. What if I wanted to round it to the nearest whole number? I'm going to put a box around whole number, and I'm going to remind myself whole number means the ones place, the first whole number place value. So first, I'm going to look at my number. Which digit is in the ones place? The 3. So I need to find which two ones this number is between. I'm not going to do 10 and 20. That's the tens place. It's between 13 and 14. Now, if I'm splitting up to find the nearest 1, I'm going to use the next place value over to find how far to move down my number line. So I'm going to use just the tenths place. So I'm going to put 9 lines. And these lines represent tenths, the next place value over from whole numbers. I'm going to move 1, 2/10ths plus a little bit more over. And I can see that because 2 is less than 5, I'm much closer to my smaller whole number, which is 13. This, rounded to the nearest whole number, is 13. Let's look at another example. Round 15 and 384 thousandths to the nearest tenth, hundredth, and whole number. Well, I'm going to start by writing my number down, 15 and 384 thousandths. I need to round to the nearest tenth. Which digit is in the tenths place? The 3 is in the tenths place. So which 2/10ths does this number fall between? 15 and 3/10ths and 15 and 4/10ths. This time I'm splitting up tenths into smaller units, so I'm going to use the hundredths place to tell me which way to go. I can see that if I move 8 hundredths down the number line, I'm much closer to my larger tenth. This number rounds to 15 and 4/10ths. Let's look at another example. Round the same number, 15 and 384 thousandths, to the nearest hundredth. Which digit is in the hundredths place? The 8. So which two hundredths is this number between? It's between 15 and 38 hundredths, and 15 and 39 hundredths. Which digit tells me how far to move down my number line? The 4 is in the next place value. I'm splitting these two hundredths up into thousands. Because that 4 is less than 5, I can see I'm closer to my smaller hundredth. Now I'm going to round to the nearest whole number. Remember, the nearest whole number does not mean the tens place. Which place value am I going to round to? I'm going to round to the ones place. Which number is in the ones place? Which digit? The 5. So which two whole numbers is this between? 15 and 16. Draw my 9 lines. I split up two whole numbers, so I only need to look to the next place value to tell me how far to go. I move 1, 2, 3 plus a little bit more. Because that 3 is less than 5, I can see that I'm closer to my smaller whole number. This number rounds to 15. Now you try an example. Round 17 and 879 thousandths to the nearest hundredth. You probably started out by finding that 17 and 879 hundredths has a 7 in the hundredths place. That means that it's between 17 and 87 hundredths and 17 and 88 hundredths. I look to the next place value over to see how far to move down my number line. I move 9 spots, and that puts me much closer to my larger hundredth. The correct answer was 17 and 88 hundredths. Round 14 and 449 thousandths to the nearest whole number. Remember, when you round to the nearest whole number, you round to the ones place. 4 was in the ones place, so this number is between 14 and 15. I look at the next number over to tell me how far to move down my line. 4 and a little bit more tells me that I'm still closer to my smaller whole number. I don't round using the thousandths place or the hundredths place, because when I split up my whole number, the next place value over is the tenths. Try one more before you move to paper practice. Round 16 and 392 thousandths to the nearest hundredth. Well, you probably noticed that there's a 9 in the hundredths place. That means that this falls between 16 and 39 hundredths and 16 and 40 hundredths. The next digit over in the thousandths place is a 2. 2 is less than 5, so it tells me that I'm closer to my smaller hundredth. So don't forget, when you're rounding, first identify the place you're rounding to, then draw your number line and look at the next smallest place value to determine how far to move down that number line. If you moved 4 or less, you're closer to the smaller. If you moved 5 or more, you're closer to the bigger. You've done a great job. Now it's time to move to your paper practice. If you have questions while you're working, raise your hand.